Welcome to the Retro Review Crew.
How's it going out there?
My name is Matt.
My name is Travis.
Welcome to this new podcast that we're going to be doing for you guys.
Yes, this is our inaugural first time doing a review for the crew here.
Yes, and today we have a special treat for you because we're going to be reviewing Mega Man 1.
Yes, the original.
It's going to be a fun time.
Yeah, going through all the different stages and kind of what we experienced, things that worked for us, things that didn't work for us, and our general feel for the game.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about where we had some troubles in, and we're going to be reviewing everything about the game, the storyline, to the difficulty, to the bosses, you name it, we're going to be reviewing it today.
Some of the wacky enemy names that they have in the manual, all that good stuff.
Right. So yeah, anyways, let's get started on the origins of Mega Man. The game was produced by Capcom in 1987. It originally came out for the Nintendo.
Yes, back in the good old days of Nintendo Entertainment System. I don't know about you, but that was always the first system I ever played growing up, and definitely got a lot of time out of it. Didn't play a lot of this Mega Man when I was a kid. Mega Man 2 was the first one that I really started playing. One of my favorite games still to this day. But it was a lot of fun going back and learning more about this game's past, as well as giving it the old college try and beating it ourselves. So, yeah.
Yeah, this fun thing for me was that I just started picking up this series about 9 months ago. I bought it actually for the regular Xbox. It's part of the anniversary collection. I always knew about this game, but I never really got into it. I never really tried it. It always kind of seemed very difficult to me.
Yeah.
And it kind of, I don't know, I was more into the Mario and Donkey Kong Country, but, I think this game, just the difficulty kind of threw me off, but boy, was I wrong. But I'm glad I played it now because I don't think I would have done as well back then.
Yeah, as a kid, just some of the things like the pinpoint jumps you have to make, the ways of knowing how hard you have to tap the button to get over certain attacks, and just the patience of trying to figure out, different strategies for bosses. Going through a whole stage nowadays to fight a boss and get your butt kicked and then have to start the whole stage over again seems like such an old school concept, but really pays off after a while. But again, you have to have a lot of patience and perseverance to make that work.
Yeah. This game was a lot of trial and error for me. And if it's your first time going into the Mega Man series, like it was for me, I really didn't know what to expect. I knew it was going to be hard, but but once you start going through it, you kind of get a grasp of how the game works and everything. So
yeah, sometimes it's advantageous just to take damage so you can get through an area.
Yes.
Sometimes you realize that if you take a couple hits, you're pretty much screwed. Or it knocks you off a platform to your death. All that fun stuff. But
there's a lot of that.
There's definitely a learning curve.
Yeah, definitely. So, to kind of get the game kind of started, we already mentioned that it came out in 1987 by Capcom. It was specifically designed for the home console. They did a lot of arcade stuff back then. Surprisingly, the game did not really sell well. The critics really loved it, but it really didn't catch on with the fans right away. Not until Mega Man 2 did the game start really selling well. We're actually kind of lucky that we got Mega Man 2. They were kind of concerned that there was not going to be a Mega Man 2 after Mega Man 1, but thankfully Capcom decided to give them a sequel, and that's where the series really started making its money.
Yeah.
So, but as far as Mega Man, it was definitely ahead of its time. I think some of the things that you can do after beating bosses, you get their powers. I think that was a really cool thing, especially back in the 80s. And then also being able to choose your own path with everything.
Right, being able to pick the stages you want to go in, what order, challenging the robot bosses. I know you and I played the game separately, went through it, and we both took very different paths of which robot boss we started with and which ones we ended with. I know it's always been kind of a staple in the series, is figuring out which stage to go through, which boss to take out, and then figuring out, which boss's power works against another one. There's times where you have kind of a guessing game if you don't look it up ahead of time. Like, is Fireman going to beat Iceman, or is Iceman going to beat Fireman? And if you guess wrong, then you realize you have to go through the stages in a different order, or you have to learn to just really get good with the Mega Buster.
Right. So yeah, we're gonna be going through the game. First, I just want to give the Mega Man backstory, so to speak, the storyline kind of going into the game. So the storyline goes as it's Mega Man versus the powerful leaders and fighting forces of Monsteropolis, that strange multifaceted land of robot-like humanoids. Brilliant scientist Dr. Light conceived the construction of fully operational human-like experimental robots to perform specific everyday duties. Dr. Light and his assistant, Dr. Wily, encouraged by their very first near-human robot, Mega Man proceeded to develop 6 additional humanoids, all programmed to perform prescribed rituals. And there we will start off with the level. Cutman, designed to function as a lumberjack. Powerful sawtooth scissors-like instrument protrudes from head, capable of gnawing through giant forest lumber.
Yes, this is the guy we call to if you want to take down a forest.
That's right.
I know that was the first stage that you did was Cutman's.
Correct. I did the first stage. And I also want to just say that I did play this game on the Xbox on the Anniversary Collection, so I did not play it on the original platform of Nintendo. And Travis, you played it on?
I played it on the Mega Man Anniversary Collection. That was not the one on Xbox. It was actually the one that came out on the Nintendo 3DS. So, played through that a lot, which was nice. This one was helpful in a lot of regards that I didn't have to sit through and play the entire game in one sitting. Because this game did not have a password system when it came out for the original Nintendo, which luckily they fixed going forward. You know, when you're a kid, maybe it feels like you have more time to sit there, 3 or 4 hours at a time, but as you get older, it gets a little trickier.
Yes,
so
yes,
this was,
it does.
Yeah, so this was the Mega Man Legacy Collection for the 3DS. It has the save state option, which was very useful, especially for later bosses in the game, to kind of get their patterns and figure out how to beat them, and, helped me get a lot of repetition where I didn't have to go through stages over and over again just to get to the boss to figure out how to beat those sons a bit.
Right. Yeah, that is correct. So, Cutman was the first stage I did. I didn't really have too much trouble in this stage, but I will say that it took a lot of trial and error at first. Just kind of getting used to the game mechanics. This was the first time I ever played Mega Man game, so yeah, basically that first part until you get to the top of the ladder, so to speak, the top of the platforms, and then you get those flying Pac-Mans that come at you, So it's your first save state. Yeah, it was a little tricky getting used to, how the game works and how you should, fire your blaster. Obviously, this is the first one I did, so I only had the blaster to use.
Yeah.
There really not much to say about this level. I didn't think it was too hard. Cutman was, I think I might have died twice, 3 times maybe, but eventually I just really spammed the blaster, the triple blaster one that you get, not the single one.
Right.
So
right.
I spammed that and I beat him, and that's pretty much how I beat him. I would say the level probably took 45 minutes for me. It took probably a little longer than, now it would. Now I could probably go, pretty quick in
15,
that. Yeah, 15
10,
minutes.
15 minutes probably, yeah.
Exactly. So, Travis, why don't you talk about Cutman?
Oh, sure. Well, with Cutman stage, it was actually one I did the bosses in a very strange order, I won't lie. Mm-hmm. So Cutman I did not face until actually right before I took on Electric Man, which was like the 3rd or 4th stage that I did. So when I got to Cutman stage, I had didn't have a lot of trouble with the stage in general. Again, it's a lot of just random enemies, climbing up in a couple areas, doing some jumps, but not a lot of areas where I felt like I was going to fall in a pit and die and things like that. The little Pac-Man looking like things, those are something that apparently I found out later. The fact you can actually kill those with like the bomb weapon or something. And just like everything in the game, they have interesting names. This one was just a super cutter, but apparently you can kill it with a bomb. I don't know why you would waste your time when you can just run through them.
Right.
But yeah, so stage itself wasn't too bad. When I got to Cutman himself, I found out later on that he was weak against Gutsman's weapon, which I did not have at this point, which there's 2 blocks in there. If you have them, you can hit him with them and He takes 2 hits of those to kill him, but he does take a lot of damage from the basic Mega Buster too, which was really nice. So just kind of lit him up with that, did a little bit jumping around to avoid his nice headgear there. And yeah, he was not too tricky, just took some damage, of course, but I probably beat him second or third try, I would say, because first time you get there, a lot of times you're banged up a little bit from the stage and not at full health. But yeah, I would say out of all the stages, I would think that his was probably one of the easiest. Maybe Bomb Man might have been the one that was easier that I'm thinking of looking back at it. But yeah. So it was not too bad.
All right, and that brings us to the second stage boss on our list. It's Gutsman, a bulldozing character capable of lifting and transporting huge boulders.
Yes.
Gutsman. This was actually the third stage I did. I did Gutsman 1, I did Bomb Man 2, and then I did Gutsman 3.
Yes.
What were some of the parts we talked about earlier that Gutsman may have given us a little trouble in?
Yeah. Well, the funny thing about Gutsman stages, it was actually one that I did on this playthrough. He was the last one I took on, which is funny too because it made me have to go back and do Electric Man stage twice to get the special weapon or the special magnet item there. But anyways, when I took him on, I remember the biggest thing that I found annoying was the first part of his stage, where you have like those platforms that like flip when they go over a little gap in the line there. So that was really a pain in the ass. It took me a way too many times to get that figured out. So that I wouldn't fall and plummet to my death every single time. But once you get past those parts, which again is a lot of timing your jumps and kind of anticipating, there's not really any enemies in the way to screw you up. So it's really just comes down to timing and being able to understand when the things are going to flip and how to time it so that you jump and get on right after the flip's done, not just go right through it like I did many a time.
Yes.
So then once you get past that part, the stage gets a lot easier. So I would say then you're just facing a lot of those enemies that, again, these enemies on this stage, the ones with like the pickaxes that jump kind of towards you, they have weird names. I think it was something like Pickle Man. So they're the ones that have like the helmets and like a shield and like an axe, and they throw it at you. So they you just basically have to kind of back off them, attack them when their shield's down, and it takes a few shots, but they go down without too much trouble. And then there's some areas where you have to drop down a little bit, some spikes to avoid, and some items. But once you get past that, the stage is pretty straightforward. You have one of those big frog-looking like guys that tries to jump on you when you get close to the end. But yeah, it wasn't too bad after that part. And then Gutsman himself does a lot of jumping around.
Yes,
which makes Mega Man fall on his butt.
Yes.
But I would say that he wasn't too bad of a boss either. They suggest you have Bomb Man to take him down. You don't necessarily need it. It just makes it a little bit easier. What did you think of the stage in general?
Yeah, now I got my memory refreshed on Gutsman. The beginning part was the toughest with the moving platform, and then you got to time it when it goes down the hole through the line. That definitely took me a while. I think that's definitely the toughest part of this stage. Just be patient. It seems hard at first because you don't know where it's gonna go, and you're sometimes you want to get over anxious and you want to jump. Right. But it took a good 20 minutes, I would say, just that part, maybe 25.
Yeah.
But the level itself, like you said, after that, it gets a lot easier.
And I think that was one of the reasons why I ended up doing that stage like last, because I was like, oh, if the whole stage is gonna be like this, then I'll just come back to this when I feel better.
Right.
But then when I actually got past it, I'm like, oh, this is actually not very bad at all.
It's not too bad. Yeah.
So if you can weather that storm, he's a boss you could probably take down earlier in the game. That Gutsman, his ability is helpful in a lot of different areas.
Yeah, I think Gutsman, his ability, you're not going to use it a ton, but when you do get it, there are specific areas you obviously need it, and it will definitely help you against a couple bosses in the game.
Yeah, and you need it to get that magnet item, an Electroman stage we'll get to a little bit later. So that's very helpful there as well. What did you think of fighting our good friend, Mr. Gutsman?
I think... Okay, so I did him third, so I did have the bomb power.
Nice.
I don't think I used the bomb that much, though, because it was just like like when you're first playing Mega Man and you look at, the cut ability versus the bomb ability, I thought the cut ability was just better and faster.
Yeah, and you can use it, and it hits like at an angle, which is convenient.
Yes. Yes. So I did not use the bomb. Maybe I could go back and see if that works a lot better. It probably does, but
Yeah.
I believe I did use the cut ability. And I did it really quick. Like I spammed that in the blaster. I think I went back and forth with it. But I finally did beat Gutsman. I think I beat him pretty handily.
Yeah.
I would say so.
He's a character that doesn't like. It's funny because he never actually walks; he just jumps. He jumps and throws. So if you can kind of predict when he's going to jump, a lot of times if you can time your jump, you don't have to have that slow part where you fall on your butt, and that could be a nice opportunity to light him up. Otherwise, the boulders, he throws them just like what you do when you get the ability. They break into 4 pieces, so they can kind of hit you from sides. But if you can avoid even a couple of those, and still just keep the pressure on him, he goes down after a little bit of focus fire there.
Right. And does he do a lot of damage? He does do a lot of damage when he hits you, I believe. So that's the one thing about him that could give you some trouble is he does a lot of damage.
Yeah.
But yeah, he wasn't like a hard boss of the game, I would say.
You just keep the attacks on and you should outlast him.
Correct. And I think overall, I mean, I probably took about 45 minutes to beat this stage first time playing it. So, like I said, that platform is going to be your toughest part of this stage.
Yeah, get past that and the rest is a lot more gamer friendly.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. And keep in mind, guys, this is the 1980s, so these games are designed to be more challenging than they are nowadays.
Yeah, back in the old days of playing just, Super Nintendo, or not Super Nintendo, I'm getting ahead of myself. Regular Nintendo games, especially, you didn't have a lot of save states. You had like passwords on a lot of games that, you had to write down and they were way too long and they didn't give you a lot. In this game, you didn't even have that, so you had to beat this all in one setting.
Correct,
and, games that really tested you a lot back then, and you go back to them now and you're still like, oh yeah, these games aren't just easier now. Right. They still live up to the challenge they had back then.
And on the if you're playing the Xbox version, and I think it's the same for the PS2 and the GameCube, is they will save it after you beat the level. Now, Nintendo didn't have that option, I believe, right? So you had to beat it in one sitting.
Right, because there was no password system with the original Mega Man. They didn't bring that until the second one.
I think in that point, with Travis playing on the DS, me playing it on Xbox, thank God for that. Because this would have been
a couple months down the line. Otherwise, probably.
Yeah, you probably would have had to leave your Nintendo on, while you went to school or work or
call in
whatever.
sick for a couple of days to make sure you get everything taken care of.
Yeah, exactly.
So who's next on our list then?
All right, the third level, third guy we're going to talk about is Iceman.
Oh, my favorite growing up. I love the guy. He's my favorite of the robots, but his stage was always the biggest pain in the butt.
And I can vouch for that. Iceman, impervious to chilling sub-zero temperatures, capable of human-like performances under extreme climatic conditions.
Yes. Apparently he was a robot created for conducting research at the South Pole. So, hanging out with all his penguin buddies down there. Yeah, his stage was I would say from top to bottom was probably the most difficult, just at least the most time consuming, because of a lot of areas where your jumping becomes just critical. It starts out nice enough, you just jump on, you see like all the frozen palm trees in the background or whatever they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Love the music in this stage.
Very cool.
Love the theme with it. You have a lot of like the penguin enemies flying around. You get through a lot of those areas first where there's that water going through there, collecting some power-ups. But then when you finally drop down, a little bit into it, and you go into the first play with the disappearing blocks, which I'm sure is kind of everyone's fond memories. You got those, and figuring out the pattern of that, and timing your jumps is huge. Again, the toughest part with that, in my opinion, was also having those little Roomba-looking like guys. I think I have their names up here. They have an interesting one. They're apparently called a gabiole. Yeah, that's apparently what they called it. So if you come in like this stage first or something like that, you will have no way of destroying these, and means every time you miss a jump and you fall down there, they speed up and they come back and they hit you, which can add up pretty quick and add to your frustration a lot of getting past all those disappearing blocks. So if you have it, one thing I found out, like the electric or the fire attacks, those will destroy those and give you all the time you need to be able to figure out the pattern. But again, it's a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of falling on your butt, and it's a lot of frustration. Getting past that part was probably the hardest. And then, because then when you drop down from that one, you finally get through that one. You're like, okay, I'm ready to take on the next part of the stage, and then you have a whole nother one. Same kind of thing. So if you can kill those gabuals, their actual names, it makes that a lot easier and gives you a lot of time to figure out those blocks.
Yes.
Yeah. Once you get past that part, then you've got those little flying platforms that you have to jump on, which wouldn't be so bad if they were trying to kill you the whole time by shooting out bullets in both directions. Those are tricky too, just because it's a lot of jumping and their patterns are pretty random. So trying to figure it out, and when you feel like you got a feel for it, then they decide to go in a random direction, and you walk right into right into a shot or something and fall to your death almost immediately. Kind of a staple in a lot of Nintendo games is when you get hit, you always go back. You get knocked backwards, which most of the time tends to take you off a platform to your death. I know that was a big issue in like the Karate Kid game. And in a lot of like the Castlevania games, you get hit by something, you fall backwards, you go right into the pit, even if the physics don't make any sense. Yeah. Game designers were kind of bastards back then.
Yeah, they were.
But yeah, and then when you get past that point, you're pretty much to Iceman. But what did you think of the stage?
This was the last stage I did because I've heard. Did a little research and went some message boards, and a lot of people said this was one of the toughest ones. Yeah, it was definitely tough. By this point, I had all the powers at least, so that was good.
Yeah.
The rotating blocks are going to take you a while. They took me a while to figure out. And then not only that, you have to get used to sliding on ice instead of just walking.
That's very true. When you stop your motion, the game doesn't just tell you you're going to stop. You get to slide a little bit more, and many times, especially on those narrow platforms, you're going to fall right down to something else.
Correct.
That's a good point.
And it's a little hard to get used to because on the other stages you don't have to worry about something like this, but on here you do. So yeah, this stage is definitely the toughest. I think this stage probably took me over an hour to beat first time. I kept having to go back to the beginning. My lives were, I just kept losing lives and had to go back to the beginning, and then finally got past it. I think I believe I used Electric Man's abilities to beat it, and that's what he is weak against.
He is.
So
I did Fireman very early on in my playthrough. He might have actually been the first person I took on. So then I had that, went into Iceman stage with that, again thinking, oh, fire will be weak against ice, it'll melt it, right?
Right.
Or ice will be weak against fire. Yep. I found out that it did very little damage when I got to Iceman, and was like, oh, okay. So I ended up having to take him down with the Mega Buster, which was a lot of trial and error because of his patterns. You get through the stage, I think, and once you get to the boss, you think, okay, he's going to be easy now. He's nice, friendly looking fella. But his ice slash does a lot of damage, and it really picks up speed. So the more damage he takes, the closer you get him to being done, the faster he gets, and makes that timing for your jumps have to be a lot different. So I was able to beat him with the Mega Buster. It took a lot of repetition, which made that stage take a long time for me.
Yes.
But after a while, I got to that point where I'm like, oh no, I'm taking this guy down eventually with this crappy weapon. It works out. But yeah, he jumps, he does the slashes, and he moves towards you, gets a little bit closer, and makes it so it's almost inevitable you're going to take some damage at some point.
Yeah.
But once you get a little feel for it, you can usually outlast him after a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
How about for you?
Yeah. Well, I think I did the same thing you did because I had all my powers. I was trying Fireman, tried the Mega Blaster, tried the Cut Man, and nothing was working. So finally, I just went on the line and looked for what he's weak against, and then you finally realize, okay, it's Elect Man, and I found out just a lot of jumping while firing. That's what I did to kind of avoid him. Yeah. It took me a while. I had many times where I had to go back to the start of the level,
right?
And go do those rotating platforms and
get you all nice and frustrated.
Yes.
And then by the time you get back to him again, you're like, what was I going to try to do?
Exactly. Exactly. And I mean, there's a lot of enemies here too that can they're not necessarily hard, but they can obviously irritate you if you're jumping and they hit you and you fall backwards and die or something,
right.
So
I think the more you do it too, like when it's frustrating, like the more times you die, the quicker you're trying to get through a stage. So even things that are like not as like when you're going through at a more careful, more calculated pace, it's not as bad, but then all of a sudden those things start getting a couple hits on you here and it gets you more frustrated.
Yes, and this is definitely Mega Man in general can be a game where if you're playing late at night and you're kind of loopy a little bit and you're not all with it, it can just frustrate you.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to take a little time out, regroup yourself, and then go back at it again.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
you need to walk away and come on back.
Exactly. And I would say this is the toughest stage of the first 6. So
yeah, I would agree.
Say, all right, so that goes to our next guy, Bomb Man, a real blaster as a heavy-duty laborer who uses intensely powerful explosives to clear land for Dr. Light's construction projects.
Little fun side note is according to the database on the Mega Man Anniversary Collection that I have here, Legacy Collection, I should say, it says that Bomb Man was a robot who, together with Gutsman, was used to clear land for development. So apparently they were buddies back in the day before that. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Which is ironic, considering Bomb Man is the one who Gutsman is weak against.
Wow.
But yeah, so little unnecessary side note there for everybody out there.
Yeah. Bomb Man was the second guy I did. He was definitely. I think his level was the easiest. I don't remember having much trouble with it. I can't even think of
really a lot of
an area that really gave me any problems. I beat him pretty easily with the Cutman ability. I think this one was definitely took the shortest amount of time. I think maybe a half hour, 25 minutes. I may have died a few times, but it wasn't much, So
I know a lot of people, after having played through, I talked to, did this stage either first or second, because Bomb Man is pretty easy to kill with just the straight up Mega Buster. He's weak against fire, which after I took out Iceman, I realized that. So because I'm like, someone's got to be weak against fire because Iceman wasn't.
Right.
And so I found that he was actually probably the easiest boss once you learned his patterns, because you could just take him down even with your regular Mega Buster or with the fire attack, or like you said in your case, like with the Cutman ability, because it's just not the toughest boss. You just have to learn when he's going to throw his bombs, how much time you have before they explode, and where the range you need to be in. Yeah, the stage itself, like you said, pretty straightforward. There's a lot of just random enemies. A lot of some of those exploding things can be a little bit annoying. I think they have some weird name. Oh, just bomb. Okay, the ones that blow up and then they blow up into four different pieces.
Yeah. Yep.
Those ones I'm not good at. For some reason, I'm bad at dodging all of those pieces, so those would get a little annoying. But nothing that you can't just get. Once you get through, you can't just run through. I would agree. I think that stage probably took me the least amount of time, and I mean, maybe 20 minutes tops, I would say. Yeah. Get through that stage, and then it kind of helps you get your feet for the series, I feel like, or for the game at least. So it's a good stage to take on early.
Very good stage to do first. Yep.
That stage, and then I think like Cutman 2 is another stage.
Those are
like
two
good ones. You don't feel like you're going to fall to your death as much in those stages, which is always nice.
Right. That's the first, and that's Bomb Man's the second one I did. So
yeah.
Bomb Man himself. Did you have any problems with Bomb Man?
No,
himself?
I thought he was not too hard. It's one of these weird stages where you fall into it instead of coming in left and right when you go through like the final gate to get to the boss. And then he's actually on your left rather than on your right, which is strange too. But all he does is really jump around and throw his bombs. So as long as you kind of get the feel for that, you know what to avoid, and oh, never mind, he does show up on the right. I don't know why I thought he was showing up. Maybe because most of the time when I'm fighting him, I see him on the left side. But yeah, you just have to avoid those bombs. And even then, even if you take a few, it's not that big of a deal because your Mega Buster is going to rip them apart pretty quick.
Pretty fast.
And if you got the fire, he'll go down even faster. So, yeah, I don't think he was too hard. Again, I spent most of my time in the middle of the stage, and then he kind of jumped around me and threw stuff at me. So,
yeah, it's a very simple stage. It's one that you should probably do first or second, like I did. The Bomb Man, he's like you said, he jumps around, but he's very easy to rip down with your Mega Blaster.
Yeah,
I think I beat him first try, if I remember, maybe second.
Sure.
Very easy stage though.
Yeah.
So.
Not a lot of people have the fire ability when they go fight him that I've talked to. A lot of times people face firemen later in the game and bomb him very early, but if you do have the fire, that is what he's weak against. And definitely takes him down even faster.
Awesome. So that brings us to our fifth character on the list, which is Fireman.
Oh, yes.
Melts and molds metals with flame-throwing torch flaring from atop his head.
Yes, it also says on my database here that he is a waste disposal robot who controls flames reaching temperatures of around 8,000 degrees. So, yeah, he was actually the first one I took on, which, again, kind of in a weird order, but it was... I wanted to take Iceman down early, and I thought that Iceman would be weak against Fireman, and I didn't do any research on the matter, so I just assumed. So, yeah, but he was good. His stage is one of the more... I would say one of the more difficult ones, top to bottom. Like,
Yes.
Gutsman stage I thought was very difficult early on, but got a lot easier afterwards. Iceman starts out really easy and then gets very frustrating towards the end and the middle. But Fireman's I thought was one that was, that was relatively tricky from start to finish. And then a boss that he wasn't as difficult as some of the other bosses, but he still put up a pretty good challenge. A lot of jumping around, a lot of trying to not fall into the fire and die.
Yes.
A lot of flaming pillars. So yeah, I think that was always one of the trickier parts for me, was just making sure that I time my jumps properly so that I don't fall into the fire and die, because there's a lot of areas for that.
Yep.
There's some of those enemies that are very frustrating. I love the music in the stage, by the way. I just want to make sure I say that. Very, I don't know, it just captures the feel of the stage really well. And then there's some of those enemies that go up, I think. Apparently they're called chain keys, which is a strange... All these names are kind of wacky, so I'm trying to bring them in as much as I can, but they're the ones that they go up, and then they come down in 3 different flames. Yep. And you have to dodge those, and if they hit you there, a lot of times will knock you right back into the fire, which can definitely get you killed very quickly or at very inopportune times. Stage, yeah, it's very constant. A lot of different enemies, and a lot of different opportunities to run into fire. There's that part closer to the end of it where there's like that generator thing that shoots these waves of flame down in a very quick pace that you can... I've been told you can go through fast enough to avoid them, but I don't think I ever have, so I usually just take my lumps, take the damage, and walk on through them, and then know I'm probably going to lose my first fight against Fireman, and then when I come back on my second life, hopefully take him out when I'm at full health again. So yeah, I like the stage a lot, though. I think it's one of the more fun stages to play, even if it can be frustrating. If you have the ice beam, it helps a lot with those pillars of flame. You can freeze them and just jump right on them, which is nice. But if you're like me and didn't do your research and don't know that Fireman's weak against Iceman, you won't have that available.
Yep.
What did you think of the stage, Matt?
This was the fourth one I did after Gutsman. I had some difficulty with the flaming walls, or the flaming... the flames that came up. You got to really time your jump, or you got to really perfect your jumps. You got to make sure, there's a lot of timing involved. The enemies can be difficult. The wave of flames that come down through the tunnel, that I just took my damage because I don't see how you... I don't know. I'm sure there's a way to do it. Obviously, people do perfect runs on this game all the time, but it's one I just kind of, just went through it, took my damage, and that's it.
Exactly. Just said, we'll get through it.
Fireman, he does do that rapid flamethrowers.
Yeah.
I did not use I didn't have the ice ability at this point. I believe I used the cut ability and Master Blaster, just doing rapid fire, like I've been, jumping and hoping you can get more on him than he gets on you. He took a while for me. I'd say the stage took another probably 45 to 50 minutes. It was hard. It was hard.
The stage itself, can be very time consuming. You can have a lot of easy, frustrating deaths. When you get to Fireman, I found like the times that I would lose to him was a lot of times when I was so worried about dodging everything he threw at me that I would end up running into more and not focusing on just keeping the pressure on him. What's weird is that sometimes when I'm moving towards him, I noticed his beam would actually like not only damage me but almost turn Megaman around, so he's looking towards the other way, so I'd have to turn around again to keep the pressure on him. But as long as you focus really mostly on damaging him as much as you can, and not obsessing about dodging everything that he throws, because you're going to take damage.
Yep.
You'll outlast him. His damage is good, but not good enough to outlast you if you're steady. Just the Mega Blaster there does really good. And again, if you have the ice attack, then, go for it, because that'll take him out even faster.
Yep.
But, yeah, I didn't think he was too bad. I liked the stage a lot. Out of all the stages, I think his is probably one of my favorite ones to replay. His and if I'm in a particularly adventurous mood, then Iceman's are probably my two favorite stages to play.
Yeah. I would say it's probably more on the difficult side, but it's not too difficult.
Yeah.
Definitely not the most difficult of all the stages.
Yeah.
So
I would probably say if I was doing like a list of the stages I thought were most difficult, I would probably put it as like the third most of the six first robots.
Mm-hmm. Right, and I could see how you'd put Gutsman harder than his, just with that rotating platform.
Yes, because just that first part.
Yeah.
Oh my! I don't know. I think I'm gonna have nightmares about that.
Right.
But yeah.
All right, and then finally we got the last on the list, which is Megaman, Dr. Light's electrifying creation, planned for conducting electrical operations, even supervising nuclear power plants.
Yeah, he is very fast. I have trouble calling him just Elect Man. I always want to call him Electric Man. But he is, I would say, the hardest boss out of the first six for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Moves so fast. His weapon can be difficult to dodge. And his stage is pretty unique. It's a lot of climbing up, a lot of dodging lightning. Even has some of those disappearing blocks like we were talking about before.
Yes.
That they have like in the Iceman stage.
Yes.
So his stage, yeah, it's fun. I love the music in his stage too. I really like the music in this game a lot, but some of those ones like Electman's, those really stick with me. Find myself humming them later on.
They're catchy, yeah.
His stage is good. He is also a little bit strange in that when you get through the end of a stage, you enter, just like with Bomb Man stage where you drop down into the boss's area, is you actually climb up into it, so you have to dodge all those lightning trips on your way up through the ladder, which I would always get too eager and wouldn't just wait and time it right, so I had to do a little repetition there. His stage is fun and different and has a lot of, like I said, a lot of climbing up.
Did his stage have the Cyclops, the alien Cyclopses that shoot at you while you're climbing up? I
believe his does. I think Bomb Man's has some of those as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And those are the ones that you just want to fire your blaster. Sometimes you just, as soon as you get up, when the screen turns, moves up. Yeah, the Watchers, they're called.
Oh, yes, the Watchers.
You just want to fire your blaster, and that's the best way to shoot them, because because usually you'll have 3 from the bottom, and then you'll have 3 from the top. So usually what I do is, as soon as I get to the next stage, I just start firing that blaster, and it generally takes care of them. So they can be annoying.
Those things can definitely be annoying. You start climbing up, and you get close to the top of the stage, and then you get knocked down, and you got to climb back up again.
And then everything respawns,
Yes.
so you get the enemies again. So
Yeah, those are Watchers. I remember them definitely in that stage, and then in one of the Dr. Wily's Castle stages too. The ones I was thinking of initially were the things called, they're just called blasters, are the ones that are like mounted on the walls that shoot. And they open and close, and you can only damage them when they're open.
Open, yes. Those are pain in the butts.
Those are pain in the butts. Those are the ones I was thinking of on Bomb Man stages. I don't think that the Watchers themselves are actually on
that.
But yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so did you think that stage was fun, hard, combo?
Electman's stage I think it's a harder stage. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. I did like it. Electman is tough.
Yeah.
He is tough. He was probably the most difficult part of this. The rotating blocks are, once you figure it out, you're good. And there's going to be a learning curve to it. I mean, if you're going into it right away, but you can figure it out though.
Yeah,
it's not going to take you
Iceman
forever.
Stage,
yeah, the Iceman one was worse.
Yeah,
I agree.
And it's important side note to say is this is to the stage where you have to get the magnet item. Which you need the Gutsman ability to do that, because there's 3 of those blocks in the way to grab it, and the magnet is really handy to have, especially when you get to Dr. Wily's castle. Being able to make those platforms can save your butt and allow you to get a lot of power-ups much easier. the other thing I found out later on too, because the wacky order that I did things in, where I took Gutsman stage on last, I actually had to go through Electric Man stage twice to get the magnet. Is that Electric Man's ability will actually break those blocks as well. So it's not just Gutsman will actually throw them. The electric thing will actually break up the blocks. So if for some reason you want to get it right away after you've beaten Electric Man stage, you don't have Gutsman, you can go right back in there and use those to get it.
Too.
Or you can do it in a smarter way and make sure you have Gutsman stage done first. But anyways, either way it works. As for Electric Man himself, I thought that he was, again, tricky. If you have the cutter, I think it takes like 3 or 4 hits from the cutter to kill him. Mm-hmm. But because of the rotation of the cutter, the circle thing it does, it can be easy to miss him if you're not planning for it.
Yep.
Now, luckily, you start up on those 2 blocks that you can use with the Gutsman ability to throw them if you have them. He's not weak against Gutsman by any means, so I would not recommend it. But it does give you a little bit of an area to make it easier to dodge some of his electric attacks. If you can avoid one or 2 of them, usually you can just take him down quickly enough with the cutter. I have not tried to take him down with the Mega Buster. I'm assuming that would be something that people who are really good at this game like to do, is a way of showing off their skills, but I would not recommend it.
Yeah, if you're just in this game just to beat it, yeah, you definitely want to do the weaknesses.
Yeah.
Exploit those. And Elecman should be a stage that you should do towards the end. Because obviously you're going to need a lot of the powers that you get, like the Magnet Beam. For instance, I went to the end of the game, Dr. Wily, and then I realized, oh, crud, I don't have the Magnet Beam. How do I do this,
Yeah.
And by that point, you're already kind of frustrated on the level. So I had to go back and beat Elecman's stage just to find the Magnet Beam, which I did finally. But
yeah.
It's definitely one you don't want to forget, because you don't want to have to go back and do it again. So
yeah. Not if you can avoid it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just, the main thing is Elecman's pretty tough. I beat him with the cutter. I remember that. I did this 5th stage.
Yeah.
And, it's very rewarding. It probably took me a good 55 minutes or so, because the rotating blocks pattern, I think you have to do twice. There's 2 different ones.
And there's a lot of areas where you can fall down quite a bit if you get hit by something.
Yes.
And some areas, like where you even have to make some of those pinpoint jumps on just those small blocks. Mm-hmm. I think twice in the level that easy to miss and fall to your death.
Yes.
And then
gosh.
yell some expletives and try it again.
Yeah.
Just for kind of a review, though, so let's kind of go through the path again. So do you remember the order that you took the bosses on?
Yes. So I did Cutman first.
Yes.
It's fine. It's a fine first level. It might be a little tough, but I would probably say Bomb Man would be better. But I did Cutsman 1, Bomb Man 2.
You get a lot of utility out of that Cutman ability, like you said.
You do.
That's helpful.
It's one you're going to go to a lot.
So it's kind of nice to have that right out the gate.
Bomb Man 2 I did, Gutsman I did 3rd, 4th I did Fireman, 5th I did Elecman, and 6th I did Iceman, because I kept hearing how tough that level was. So.
And it's nice to have the Electric Man ability at the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
For me, again, I did mine in a very strange order. I did Fireman first, because I wanted to have that out the way, and I liked the stage. Then my second stage that I did was Iceman. Then I went back and did Bomb Man with fire. Then, since I had Bomb Man, I was considering doing Gutsman, but then like I said, I had my run-in with the earlier stuff and said, nah. So then I went and did Cutman 4th, Electric Man 5th, and ended with Gutsman number 6.
Wow. Yeah.
So took things in a little bit of strange order, at least from my understanding of what people typically do. But yeah, it shows that even if you take different paths, as long as you keep trying and kind of get a feel for what works against certain people or patterns of bosses' attacks, that you can go in a lot of different ways and still beat the game. Which will bring you to Dr. Wily's castle.
Yes, and I just want to comment on that. It's just so cool that, this was a game in the 80s, but it was so innovative that you could take your own way. You could choose how you want to beat the game. Like, other games just weren't doing that at the time.
Yeah,
so
it became such a staple in the series.
Exactly. So before we talk about Dr. Wily's 4 stages of hell,
yes.
I want to just finish the storyline with the basic storyline. So after I read all 6, then it says, but with the exception of Megaman, all of Dr. Light's near human robot experimentation went Awry. Assistant Dr. Wily turned disloyal, reprogramming Dr. Light's humanoids, now bent on destroying opposition so Dr. Wily can control the world and its resources. Resisting reprogramming, Mega Man is chosen as the defender of the universe and its inhabitants. Mega Man dares to single-handedly penetrate 7 separate empires of Monstropolis, eliminating the leaders and followers of these sovereignties.
Yes.
So that is the whole storyline of this game.
Thank goodness for Mega Man.
Exactly. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
So Dr. Wily, stage 1. Let's talk about it.
Yes.
I don't want to talk about it, but we're gonna.
Sure.
Because we have to.
So, first thing I remember is when you warp into the stage and hear the, again, awesome music. This whole series has just really good music in this game, and this game just, I don't know, has a lot of those really sweet tunes to it. But anyways, you get through there and you have a whole series of what are called big eyes, apparently, which are the ones that look kind of like giant frogs and jump and do a lot of damage. They can take a lot of damage.
Oh, gosh.
So a lot of times all I really do is just wait for them to jump high and run underneath them, or guess that they're going to jump high. And there's like, I want to say 3 or 4 of those in a row.
There is 3. Yes.
Yeah, you can use like your ice weapon to freeze them, or you can try to kill them, which means a lot of backing up and shooting. Or you can, like I said, you can just run past them, which is what I ended up doing. You get past those guys, and then you get into like this little small room where you have to use the guts ability or the electric ability to get those blocks out of the way. And then you have all those pillars of fire, just like you would back in the Fireman stage. Now this time you definitely have the ice beam.
Yes.
So it's useful. You can freeze those pillars.
Yes.
And just jump on top of them. First one's easy enough to do. The second one, for some reason, I had a lot of issues with timing it. So, like, where I would zap it, I would freeze it, and then I wouldn't be, and then it would be too high up where I couldn't get Mega Man in between, so that you could jump up to the next one. So a lot of times I would just kind of take, after a while of trying it from different angles and just getting frustrated, just take my lumps, take a little bit of damage, jump up, and get to the third and final flame barrier or flame pillar, get past that, and then climb up the ladder. A lot of spikes, I remember, and then in the area after that, a lot of those enemies that jump around and try to knock you down. I'm not sure, trying to remember what they were called. Kamadomas, apparently. You might remember these because there's a lot of them in Bomb Man stage 2. They're ones that just jump around.
Yes.
And can knock you down. So it was very, very important to make sure you got your grip ready to hit up button at any time so you can grab it onto the ladder. Another interesting thing, little side note, is that whenever you try to pause the game and if you're on a ladder, it will make you start to drop when you take the button off. You won't be holding onto the ladder, at least not on this version.
Oh.
So I had to make sure that I was constantly ready to hit the up button right away so I don't, switch to my handy ability, switch to my magnet and then fall to my death because I didn't think to grab the ladder again. Yeah. But so those guys were annoying. Anyways, a lot of jumping around, a lot of dodging enemies. Areas there, when I got past that, where there was a lot of areas where there's blocks for the gutsman stuff that you can get past. There's some power-ups and enemies that you can use to kill and kind of refill up all your weapons if you need to. Refill up your energy. Just go walking off the side of the screen and coming back will cause all the enemies to respawn on the other side. So, unfortunately, that takes a lot of patience, and it's kind of another staple of the whole Mega Man series, even into like Mega Man X, is refilling your weapons and your energy. So that can be tedious at times, but it's, especially if you're not having a ton of lives, it's very important. And that's another way you can get extra lives, actually, is eventually sometimes you'll see that happy Mega Man head drop when you kill an enemy. get an extra life, and it gets you ready, for a couple extra tries if you need it.
Right.
Other than that, the stage, like you said, it's just a pain in the butt. It's a lot of jumping around. You don't have to face any of them Mega Man bosses again yet. Not in this first part. No. Which is kind of nice, but you also have to face who I would say is the most difficult boss in the series. Or not in the series, I'm sorry. I don't know about the whole series. In Mega Man 1, though. Yeah. The Yellow Devil, who goes by a lot of different names, but that's the one I'm most used to seeing. Yeah. When you get to him, just so much fun trying to figure out his patterns. It says on our database here that the Yellow Devil is a large robot made of shape memory alloy. Its parts will always come at you in the same pattern, so memorize that pattern and dodge. I found the electric beam is best way to take him down. I did did not use any kind of glitch or anything, but it took a lot of tries to take him down. The biggest thing that's hardest is just trying to figure out, his pattern and when to jump and when to time your jumps and how hard to hit that jump button. Mm-hmm. He does a bunch of these things where his shapes come back to you and just kind of freak you out. You get hit once, you kind of panic, and next thing you know, you're getting hit like 3 times.
Yep.
And it's not like each time does a ton of damage to you, which is the funny thing. But if you keep getting hit during the same part of the sequence, because you can only hit him once, once he switches over to the side, you'll find that you're always kind of trying to play catch up with him, and that's not a game you're going to win, most likely. So I did a lot of repetition, figured out that when a part that I had to wait until I was almost getting hit by one of his parts during like after the third jump to jump over the fourth and fifth piece, and it was just a lot of repetition, but it worked out eventually. Probably like 30 or 40 tries. I finally got that son of a gun. And then one thing that too is when he completely changes his transformation to the other side of the room, he just shoots a single, looks like a little pellet at you, which I thought was so strange because it never really hits anything.
Right.
I guess it just gives you enough time to hit him with your weapon. And again, the electric beam seemed to be the way to go. What do you think about our good friend, the Yellow Devil?
So, yeah, I started this last final stage not having the magnet beam, so you could see my frustration already when I got to it. But starting off, you get those, what were they called? The eye robots that jump on you. If they land on you, they do a big chunk of damage. They can actually kill you in 3 hits, I believe.
Yeah, they take a lot out. The big eyes.
The big eyes, what they're called. So basically what I did is I just tried to have them do the big jump over you. Sometimes they will do the little hops, and if they start doing the little hops, you're kind of screwed because you're going to take damage. So just hopefully they do the big jumps instead of the little hops. So you get past them, you use the Guts ability to break into the tunnel, and that's where you get the flames. This part took me a while, and I didn't think about it. I'm for a while there, I'm just sitting, 10 minutes later, I'm like, how the heck do I get past this part?
Right.
And it's like,
your instincts too.
Okay, so I got to use, So just remember while you're playing this, use all your abilities, which I didn't think to use it, but eventually I got it, and you had to use your ice. You had to use your ice ability, and then, and the other thing is you have to learn how to time it too. That's the other thing.
Definitely.
So
you got to anticipate where you need it to be frozen, because otherwise you're just going to sit there and wait for it to thaw out and then have to go out again.
Right, exactly. So
and those things don't kill you instantly, unlike a lot of games where you're probably thinking, fire, instant death.
Right, right.
You'll take some damage if you hit them, but you can keep going through.
Yep, exactly. And then the next room is just kind of a tease, because there's that health bar that will re-energize you right to the top, but it's kind of hard to get it. You can use the magnet beam to get it, but just make sure that you don't land on the spikes, because
those are instant death.
That is instant death. And the block that you have to land on is not that big, so you really kind of have to get on that jump real perfectly almost. So or else you'll land on it, and then you jump on the ladder. Make sure you're holding up, because you might die as well. You might fall on the spikes if you're not holding up. So then you climb up the ladder, and then you get some of those jumping frogs and whatever. Those are pretty easy. You might take Just remember, though, if you move across screen and then come back, they will respawn.
Yes.
Which sometimes you learn the hard way on that. So
it can be frustrating.
It can be tough.
You're spending time trying to get life back, and then you turn the screen, you run right more into more of them, and you're like, all that life I just got back from killing all these guys.
Exactly. So then you go to the next part, and then you get the bullets coming after you. Just make sure that you don't try to rush jumping on the blocks, because the bullets they'll keep coming, and they do a decent amount of damage. And just kind of hit them, and then keep going, and then hit them again, keep going, kind of. So then after that, you jump down, and this part I had some trouble with these rotating helicopters, as I call them, the green helicopters.
The ones you have to land on top of?
Yes, the ones you have to land on top, because not only do they fire bullets at you, they also you can get hit with their choppers on the bottom.
Yeah, they're called footholders.
Okay, footholders.
Yes, and like I said, their random movement patterns make them pretty darn annoying. And you have to figure out when they're like going to shoot. Like you said, the bottom part, their choppers can hit you. They'll like to shoot at you to try to hit you with other things. And I believe there's even spikes on the top of the wall in this one. So you can't wait too long either, because if you do, they can get you too close, and you can end up hitting the spikes and dying that way.
Yeah, everything's random how they do their patterns. So if you don't get down there, you pretty much have to use the magnet sometimes to jump on them. I didn't. I wanted to save my magnet, which was good. But I died a ton of times just trying to get on these things, and you wait for so long, and it's very time consuming. If you get the right one, just make sure you don't get hit by their bullets, because they will knock you back. Make sure and you have to jump on 4 of them, and then once you do that, then you go up the ladder, get your magnet power. So you have that full. The next room, you have to use your magnet power to basically create the platform, then jump on the platform, then create another platform till you actually get the platform that's actually in the game, So once you figure out how to use that, it takes a little bit of time to perfect it, but once you know it, it's pretty simple. And then you climb that up to go to the Yellow Devil.
Yes, as I was saying before, not a fun boss to figure out.
No, and the thing with me is there is something called the pause glitch in this game, and this was the only enemy I used it on, because it was just, I couldn't beat it, and I was getting so frustrated.
But you didn't have the luxury with mine as having like save states where I could save it at the beginning of the battle, and then, go through it, and if I died, I could just reload it and start at the beginning of the battle.
Right.
So I had a lot more chances without having to go through the entire stage of learning his patterns, which was helpful.
And with the thing with the Xbox is they will, you can save it after you beat levels, but not while you're in it. So the thing on the Xbox is you got to beat Dr. Wily's in one fell swoop. Yeah. So Yellow Devil, I used the pause glitch, and that's how I beat him. However, I was starting to kind of figure out the pattern like right before I beat it, but I didn't beat him. I just did the pause glitch, and if you don't know what the pause glitch is, you can use the electric shock, and then right as you press it, you just press. On the Xbox, you press the select button. Select. You give it like maybe a second before you, maybe a little less than a second before you pause it again. And then it'll actually hit him many a times. Yeah. So you can actually just beat him in one fell swoop. So that's how I beat him. This level was very hard, though. It's a lot of time-consuming stuff. I would say this is probably the toughest stage of Dr. Wily's.
I would agree. I think
it's either first or second.
I would think this, once you get past this, it's not as bad. It still can be tricky, but this is, I would say, it's probably the hardest stage. Mm-hmm. And again, once you get to the Yellow Devil there, you're like, oh, whatever, he won't be that tricky. And then you realize, he takes a lot of time to get to figure out. And even when you've got his pattern figured out, it's still easy to mess it up. And like I said, you get hit with one thing, you start to freak out. And next thing you know, you've been hit like 4 times, and it's all falling apart.
And it's not only that; it's like figuring out the pattern while you're firing too. Like while and still firing. On. Yep. So. Anyways, that brings us to Dr. Wily Stage 2.
Yes, Stage 2.
So why don't you say how you did on Stage 2?
So Stage 2, they drop you right down on that platform. A lot of platforms in the beginning part here where you're jumping. A lot of those, I believe those helicopter enemies. They have a weird name like most enemies do. On the database, they call them Bun B Helis. They say a reconnaissance robot with a built-in camera eye. It will dive bomb you relentlessly, so try to defeat it quickly. One of the tricky things with these guys is that they would like to have them spawn right as you're about to start your jump from one platform to the next. So, with that in mind, after a while of running right into them and falling to my death, as the designers I'm sure intended, I got better and would do a little kind of mini jump and then come back towards the platform, and usually would be enough to trigger them to come out, and then I could kill them before I had to make my jump, and it made it a lot easier to make those jumps, but they were still just annoying. So getting through that, you get closer, and then eventually when you get to the first part past those, you see some energy bars like right in front of you to like replenish some of your weapons, but there's also a hole in the ground that you fall through to go fight your first boss. I'm trying to remember which is the first boss that you fight.
I believe it's Cutman.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yep.
Yeah. So you fall down, you have to fight Cutman. There's no Gutsman platforms in there, which is kind of strange because that's what he's supposed to be weak against. So I just used, but again, the Mega Buster works just fine. Again, you want to try not to, well, it's kind of a silly thing to say, but you want to take as little damage as possible because it will be, in just a little bit, you'll be fighting another boss. So when you take him out, drops you back down. You go through similar areas to the first one where you're jumping through platforms, avoiding enemies, killing enemies. You come down to another area similar to that right before where you fend into Cutsman. You drop down that area, and then you fight. Now I can't remember. Is it Electric Man?
I think it's Electric
I think it's
Man.
Electric Man.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is nice because you can fight him and hopefully have still enough health. But the problem thing is you don't have those blocks, those Gutsman blocks to avoid your attack. So you're in a flat area, no real way to dodge a lot. You have to try to jump. So again, it becomes a battle of just trying to kill him as quickly as you can, because otherwise he will kill you.
Yes.
Cutman ability takes him down quick, but if you're not at full health, it can be pretty difficult.
And I just want to say, too, if you die facing Electman here, you will go back to the start of the level. You have not reached the safe spawn point.
Yeah, then you gotta go through all those platforms, and you gotta fight Cutman again.
Yes.
So it's not forgiving in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you beat him, you go down a little bit more, and eventually you fall down into the pit, which looks like a discotheque in the background, and then you end up having to fight clone Megaman,
Mm-hmm.
who apparently has stronger attacks than we do.
Yep.
So he also likes to mimic your abilities, so if you equipped a certain weapon, he will use that weapon as well, probably to greater effect. So I just stuck with the basic Mega Buster, and he's interesting in that when you hit him, he does the whole same motion that your Mega Man does. He goes backwards, and if you time it right, you can get him because he likes to jump a lot. If you can get him when he's about to jump, he'll go back without shooting, and then you can do it again. Sometimes he'll still get some shots in there, but if you do it well enough like that, you can clip him off and take him out and eventually win. Now, I just used the Mega Buster, so I'm not sure. I know there's probably a lot of other ways to beat him. It says he's weak against fire here, which is interesting on the database, but I'm not sure. I've never given it a shot. I think you said you used the electric ability to defeat him?
I did. Yep. I just basically spawned that, and like you said, you can get him in a pattern where he just kind of keeps coming back.
Yeah, without really getting any shots off.
Right.
He just jumps up and then takes another shot, and rinse and repeat.
Yes.
I like how on the database they show him here, and he's basically Mega Man. He just has really dark red eyes.
So he's evil,
Yes.
evil Mega Man.
I know he's evil. That or a fake mustache or an eye patch or something.
I just, to add on to what he said, your second respawn point, you will have some more stuff after you beat Electman. You get a lot of climbing down ladders and like facing a lot of those, enemies on the wall and whatnot. Just remember your second spawn point, there is a Mega Man full extra life that you can get. So if you keep respawning, you'll never have to lose a life if you keep going to get that extra life. So remember, it's to your left. Always get it if you do die. So it's definitely a help. So, I mean, it was decently hard, but I feel like it was just more long than hard,
Yeah, I would agree. Like you said, with the extra life, it gives you basically unlimited chances as long as you keep grabbing it. But yeah,
right.
And then just figuring out the clone Mega Man, how to fight him.
Correct. I mean, it's a little overbearing because you're not used to fighting 3 bosses in one level.
Yeah.
I think that's what kind of got me at first, but after that, you kind of, you kind of tell yourself, I can do this. It's not hard. It's not too hard.
You just kind of learn after a while what's the best way to go about it.
Yes, exactly. And I think for as long as this level was, they definitely made up for it in the next one.
Yes,
So.
this
All right.
next one was very strange.
Yes.
Wily Fortress Castle, whatever they call it, stage 3.
Stage 3.
Yes.
Yes, very.
A lot of just going down a watery tunnel,
Yeah, pretty much.
for killing penguins and the bomb guys.
You get some enemies at first. You get like 2 areas of a lot of enemies, but after that, you just fall down a pit and then you go into the water. And
Yes.
both of our recommendations here is just don't even press anything. The water will take you through, and just keep firing your blaster.
Yep.
And it's the easiest strategy ever.
I know, you get to meet a lot of, and I had to look it up because I was always curious. I figured it'd just be called the penguin, but apparently the penguin enemies that you see there in Iceman stages are called Pepe,
Pepe.
which I would not have guessed. Yeah, just those little penguins with propellers on front. They're probably one of my favorite characters, or enemies, I should say, just because, I don't know, and they're named Pepe, so should have been a mascot going forward for the series, in my opinion,
agree.
but whatever. So you get through that, and then you eventually have to face that weird robot thingy.
Yeah.
So this is like, I've heard called many different names. I've heard it called the bubble robot, the bubble bot. According to the database, it is called the CWU-01P. So we're just gonna call it the bubble robot, I guess, or whatever.
That's the best way to do it. Yep.
So it's you have to basically kill it 7 times, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
There are 4 of the Gutsman blocks in the room. I usually would save them after I've killed them the first 3 times, because each time you kill it, it gets faster as it comes down. So it comes down from like the top or from the sides,
Yep.
and rotates around the room.
It's all random unless you play the Genesis version. The Genesis version actually is way easier because it's the same
spot?
every time, so it's easier to remember the pattern.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
But that's
So you know
only
what's
for
coming.
the Genesis version. Yep.
Yeah. So I just took it down with the Mega Buster the first 3 times. I also see that apparently the Thunder Beam is relatively effective against it, so Electman's weapon. But then once you've taken down the first 3 times, then I would just recommend switch to Gutsman ability, pick up the block, hit the one that comes down, rinse and repeat until they're all dead and you're all out of blocks. And you'll take damage. I mean, it's gonna happen, especially with those first 3 ones, but it's best to save those blocks for the last ones, because when it's going whipping around the stage so fast, it's a lot easier to kill them when you just have to hit them with 1 block each time.
Yeah, the blocks just take them out so fast. I tried everything before that, and maybe took 4 times before I'm like, okay, there must be a simpler way to beat him. And then I used the Gutsman ability, and it was like, oh wow, that is easy, like super easy. So that level, if you know how to do it, it's just takes maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah,
it's so easy. And thank God, because the first 2 were just so hard.
They were a pain in the butt. And then the 4th one, is a little bit of an annoyance too.
Yeah,
but stage 3 is kind of a nice way to cleanse the palate, so to speak.
Yeah, give you a little recharge.
And get you ready for the final stage.
Yeah, I was a little shocked though that you didn't face 2 of the Robot Masters in 3.
It was strange.
Yeah, because you thought like maybe that was how it was going to go.
I was actually originally thinking we'd get like the first 3 in Wily Stage number 1, and then we'd get like the next in stage 2, and they took it in a very different way. Or I even thought I would get like in some of the stages where you literally will go and drop into a room, go into one capsule of your choice, fight an enemy, boss, and then come back until you've done all of them. But they did this in a different way, which was not bad, kind of refreshing actually after playing some of the other ones.
Yes.
But still, it was a little weird and a little strange to have stage 3 be so short.
Right.
But and
we'll take
stage 4. Yeah, exactly. I won't complain.
Right.
Then you get to stage 4, which is again the final stage, where you get to face a lot of bosses. You get to face the four other bosses we didn't face in the first stage of Wily's Castle, or the second stage, I should say. And then after that, you get to face that devious son of a gun himself, Dr. Wily. So if I remember correctly, when you do face the bosses, it's pretty much rapid fire. You don't really get any time to recover. I don't really remember exactly the order you face them in. Do you, by chance?
I believe you start off with Bomb Man or Gutsman. I believe it's one of the 2, and then The second and third, I believe, are Iceman and Fireman.
In a certain order,
In
yeah.
a certain order, yep.
I guess it doesn't really matter.
No, just do what you do normally against them. Use, attack their weaknesses.
Yeah.
Yep. So whoever you come in contact with, just, get your special weapon equipped and
yeah, take them down.
Yep.
Take them down to Banana Town or whatever. Yep. Yeah, it's not bad. And when you get to actually have to face Dr. Wily afterwards, you're probably going to die on your first attempt if you haven't fully recharged your character's health. If you have, then it's not too bad, but it's hard to get on there with no damage, so you're probably going to go down the first time you run into Dr. Wily at least. I remember Dr. Wily being a little tricky in a lot of games to figure out. In this one, it wasn't too bad. The electric beam was just amazing. It's kind of like the MVP weapon of the game, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, in Mega Man 2, I know like the metal blade is like, it does a similar thing where it's usable in so many situations. And this one, the electric beam, is great. Shooting in that triangle kind of, or not triangle, but up, one down, and one straight forward is really helpful. And in this case, it really works well against Dr. Wily because he has those two different sensors on him. So the first time you fight him, the first part, he's covered up. He's got his sweet little ride that he has. So he's covered up so you don't actually see him. But you shoot that little ball that's in front of him that shoots out pellets in kind of a strange pattern. They go up and over, and you can dodge them, which you need to do, and then you need to shoot it as you're going. So I've heard people can sometimes use the cutter for this part too if they want to really conserve their electric beam for the second part. I found that the electric beam is usually enough to get me through to the end, and then if I need to, I can use some Mega Buster on the last part. But once you kill him, or I should say defeat his first form, with the electric beam hitting both of his sensors, that goes relatively quick. Then his visor will open up, and you'll see that rat bastard himself, Dr. Wily. Now this part is pretty much the same as far as what your plan should be. You want to hit that sensor in the front, but you have to avoid those beams of spears of energy or whatever they are that he shoots at you. And they either tend to go really high or relatively low. So if they go really high, you can just stay right underneath, again jumping up and shooting as needed. If they go low, sometimes you can just jump right over them. But the big thing there I found was just getting a feel for it, knowing how to anticipate it. A lot of time it's position of when it shoots, of where you are at that point, and then you just react accordingly. Mm-hmm. If your electric runs out, one of the things that you can do is you can just switch to the Mega Buster. Again, you have to kind of get a feel for it. So at the very arc of the jump, you kind of want to turn and shoot towards him. The very top of it, I should say. And that gives you the best chance of still hitting him and killing him. A lot of times it's close, even though I know his pattern. Sometimes I still kind of screw it up and have to switch around. But once you hit him enough times, he'll die, and this is his final form. So it's nice when you can do that. What do you think about this final stage?
Yeah, it's
inaugural Mega Man.
It starts you off with a few of those blocks, and you get those aliens coming down. But just do stick in one area and fire at them as fast as you can. Preferably low or high. If you can get to the high point right away, fine. But stick low because you don't want to have to fight them both at the same time. Because there's gonna be 6 aliens and whatnot.
Yeah.
Another area, you have to use your Mega Blaster or your Magnet Beam to get on one of the platforms. So that's fairly easy. And then also the next part, you just get like a bunch of those pillars you have to go run through, and there's a bunch of those robot guns that shoot from the top and the bottom.
Yeah,
that's always easy to use your electric beam and whatnot. So that's probably the best weapon to use there. Also, I might add, before you get to the horde of bosses, you're going to get another one of those rotating or those moving platforms.
Oh, yes, like in the beginning of Gutsman.
Yes, just like in the beginning of Gutsman. It may take a little bit because you have to get used to the pattern and whatnot, and it takes a while for that stinking platform to come by you so you can jump on it. But one thing you want to do, there's extra life, and there's also a power
Yes.
I don't even know what it's called, but it refills all of your abilities
Yes.
to the max potential.
All of your health, all of your energies.
Yes, everything. So
And the
get
funny
that.
thing about it is you see it, and when I saw it, I'm like, it looks like a screw attack or something from Metroid. I'm like, I had no idea what it was. I'm like, oh, it must be an ability I didn't get yet.
Right.
So it's a
Yeah.
strange thing to see, but yeah, definitely pick it up. You're gonna need all that stuff.
It really is. Dr. Wily, and then, you beat the 4 bosses. Just try to beat them as fast as you can. Try to conserve damage. I mean, obviously, I would say, like, Bomb Man and Gutsman, just try to avoid them because they're not, like, hard enemies. Just use the weaknesses, like we said. Dr. Wily, he is kind of tricky.
Yeah.
Not trickier than the Yellow Devil. He's not harder than the Yellow Devil. He does, when he comes into his second form, he kind of throws like a curveball at you. It's kind of hard to, you just kind of have to,
Yeah.
Jump over it. And then,
Yeah, it's important, to jump over it when it's coming down low, and if it looks like it's coming in really high, just walk under it. It's
Right.
It's strange, but it actually works.
Right, exactly. It's just a lot of jumping and firing at the same time and dodging the bullets that he has. So
Yeah.
you kind of have to do a couple things at once, but
It's
definitely.
it's a lot of just knowing your character's hitbox and knowing where they are.
Yes.
And just keeping moving, really.
So yeah, I mean the final level, like if we're kind of ranking Dr. Wily's stages, I would say still the first level is the toughest, followed by
Yeah.
probably the last one because of all the bosses.
Right, all the bosses in a row.
And then the second level because it's kind of long. And then the third level clearly is the
Yeah.
easiest
The
one.
third level is a
stage.
chance for you to catch your breath.
Exactly. So
Yeah, I would say that's the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
The first stage of the castle is the hardest. I would say stages. If I had like rank stages just based on thinking that way, I would say from all the different parts, I would say that's the hardest stage of the game, and then I would probably say I think Iceman stage is the second hardest, just
Mm-hmm.
because it is frustrating and very time consuming.
it's very time consuming and it's hard to know. It's a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
So you're gonna get frustrated unless you've played the game before and you're a pro. But if it's your first time playing,
Yeah.
you will get frustrated like I did.
Yeah.
So my only advice is make sure that don't forget the magnet beam when you're on a
Yes.
Leckman stage. So, as far as the ending goes, pretty simplistic. You beat
Yeah.
Dr. Wily and he comes to his knees and you save the world basically.
Yeah.
And for at that point, there's peace on the earth. And
You get the famous Dr. Wily begging for his life thing that you see at pretty much the end of every Mega Man game where he's in it.
right.
And Mega Man doesn't learn. We let him live, and then he comes back and causes more mischief in the future. But yeah, and then the exit with him walking with Mega Man, or the ending with Mega Man walking down, credits rolling, and yeah, seeing Mega Man looking like he's wearing schoolboy pants or something. I don't know, but
Yeah, and he's actually called Rockman, which is his
right.
regular form until he turns into Mega Man.
Which
But-
is interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, I never knew. I mean, I knew that he had been called Rockman in Japan. That's what he was known as. So it was kind of cool to see that. And you see at the end, I think he walks and he runs into sees Dr. Light rather.
Dr. Light
and Roll
Roll, yes.
there. So and then he jumps in the air and it's all happy and that's how
Yeah,
the
it's
game
pretty
ends.
much it. I mean, he walks through a bunch of different terrain. He starts with
Yeah.
mountains, then he goes by an ocean,
Yes,
and then the
you see
city,
color changes.
and then you see his house. So
And really, as it was as this time period too. This is about video game and endings didn't get very intricate.
Right.
This was a good one. I liked it. It was simplistic but nice.
Right.
It wasn't like some of the ones of games that I play, like Rampage, where it's like you have saved the world, you've destroyed the city, congratulations. And I didn't see any spelling errors like in Ghostbusters or anything like that. The
Right.
game. So
Right.
yeah, it was nice. It was simple. Had some nice music. Just very. Yeah,
Right.
very fun game. Way to end the game too.
yes,
As
yes,
I get to read all the different folk who made the game.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So yeah, simplistic ending. What would you give the story in the game? I don't think there's a lot of story.
There's not a ton, which was not uncommon at all.
You get more story in the instruction booklet than you really do in the game,
which
so-
is pretty common in video
Yes.
games at this point.
and it's only a platformer.
Yeah.
too, so
I mean,
yeah.
even in games like Final Fantasy for the original Nintendo and things like that, you would get some story, but it wasn't not like today where you feel like you go into a town in a video game or something and talking to everybody takes like a half an hour to an hour. it's get you into the action right away. But still, I think the general story of it was one that's easy to jump into to kind of get the feel for, and then kind of make your own narrative as you go through. So I would say, as far as stories go, I would say the story itself is fine. It's nothing, special by today's standards, but at that point it was good. So I would say I'm going to give the story a C plus.
C plus, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I would give it. I would give it like a 6.5 to a 7, a little lower than you would, but you know, it is what it is. You have to remember when it came out and whatnot.
Right.
Graphics, what would you give the graphics?
Graphics, I think, were actually quite a bit ahead of their time for what we were seeing on the Nintendo. Just being limited by being an 8-bit system, you couldn't see a ton of application. And honestly, the graphics for Mega Man has remained kind of part of its charm, is that it really didn't improve a lot between games, but I think that tells you a lot of how good it was in the original one, too. I am going to say, as far as graphics go, thinking of comparing it to like other Nintendo games or games that were out for other systems at the time especially, I'm going to give it a B+.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 8 out of 10, and for the time it came out, I think it was very revolutionary, and there was a lot of cool stuff in it.
Yeah. It got you into it, draws you into it, and the character of it without feeling like it's trying so hard to make the graphics great that it's taking away from like the game or the gameplay. I feel like the graphics help sell the character of the whole series. That spritey kind of animation that I think a lot of us grew up with that still holds nicely today.
Here today,
Yeah.
yes. Let's go with difficulty. What would you rate the difficulty?
Well, I found it to be a very difficult game,
Yeah.
Especially, going back and having played other Mega Mans. If I compare it to like Mega Man 2 or Mega Man 3, this game is definitely more difficult than those. You don't have the ability to slide yet, but you don't get till 3, and you don't have like any kind of supercharging Mega Buster like you get. I want to say 4, that you can finally charge it up your regular weapon. But really, it's a difficult game. It's rewarding, but it takes a lot of perseverance and a lot of patience. Sometimes you just have to walk away from it. So if I'm saying the difficulty of the game, I would give it. It's saying how difficult it is, I would say it's probably like a 9 out of 10 as far as difficulty goes. If I was going to give it a letter grade, where a higher grade would be better, meaning that it would be a harder game, which just feels weird saying it that way, I would say I would give it an A for that.
Yeah.
It is a very difficult game at times, and it takes a lot of trial and error to really get a feel for it. And I think the most of the difficulty comes in trying to get that feel for it, to put in the time that you need to, because you do need to put in the time to get a feel for it, and to get that intuition that you need. So yeah, I would say 9 out of 10 or an A.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 8.8 out of 10. I thought it was, like you said, a lot of trial and error, and trying to get used to it. Trying to know, sometimes to explore further, you have to die a few times, and, knowing the enemies, exploit the weaknesses and whatnot. And Dr. Wily's stage obviously is very hard. So
Yeah.
it's an 8.8. It's definitely not the hardest game you're going to find out there, but casual gamers are probably not going to play through this game because they're going to get frustrated.
Right. They're not going to put in the time to actually beat the game.
Yep.
They might play for a little while and mess around, but they I think will get turned off by the difficulty of it.
Yep.
And not want to sit down and play it all in one
and
sitting.
try to keep beating it and try to get better. So
it takes a lot of perseverance, and especially with nowadays with modern people, I feel like an old man. I'd be like back in my day.
Yes.
A lot of people are so used to games being easier, being able to save, or that even password systems would throw people off a lot. So I think people aren't as likely to go back and play these kind of games if they didn't play them during their childhood, because they're not going to give them a chance, because they're going to either be turned off by the graphics because it's an older game, or they're just going to say oh, this is too hard, and then just give up on it, which is a real shame because this is an amazing game from top to bottom.
Replayability.
Surprisingly high. There's always different ways to try, different bosses to try, in different orders and different weapons and different strategies. So I would say platform games in general, I do have fun going back and playing. I would give this one probably a I would say probably a B minus as far as going back and playing
it.
higher than I would have thought going into it initially.
Exactly. You almost kind of look at like a game like this, like, oh, I just want to beat it once and get it over with because
I could say I
from
did find-
'87. Yes,
Right.
exactly. But there actually is a lot of customization in here. You can choose your own adventure, and
Right.
it's fun to just kind of go back and try to see, oh, can I beat this boss faster doing this? And so I agree. Like I'd say I give it a 7.5 to go back, and
Yeah.
there's kind of makes me want to go see if I can beat the Yellow Devil without using the pause glitch.
Right.
So yeah, there's definitely parts that you can go back and try to see if you can beat it a certain way, and I think it's fun enough. It's not frustrating. Like after you beat it, you kind of look at your errors, and you can correct them a little better.
And you've gained a lot of experience going through it. The first time is the hardest,
Yes.
obviously, because you're learning
Yes.
things. But when you've gone through it, beaten it once and go back and play it again, it's kind of like riding a bike in a way.
Yeah.
You can come back after a while, and then a lot of it comes back like, okay, I need to do this. Okay, these enemies, I need to trigger this way so that they don't surprise me, or I need to make sure that I position myself here.
Right.
That kind of thing. So a lot of it is just trying to sort your way through it the first time you play.
Yeah.
And then after that, then you can get a little more, I don't know, a little more efficient with things and try different things out.
Correct.
So overall, I would give Mega Man, the first Mega Man, a B as a top grade. I like it a lot. I think it's very fun. I think, again, the difficulty will probably chase off a lot of people. I know it did when I was a kid. It chased me off.
Yeah.
You don't get some of the cool stuff that you get later on in the series. Like you can't slide. You don't have the Mega. You can't like charge your Mega Blaster like you can later on your Mega Buster. So some of that stuff you don't get any of the like roll abilities yet, or not the roll abilities, rush abilities with the dog. Those come on later on, but you get so many, just such a unique experience, especially if it's the first game you play in the series, which a lot of us it was because it was the first one. It just really invites you in and is a very rewarding experience. When you beat the game, you really love it. The music's amazing. The designs of characters are great. Just the simplisticness of the characters still, it just draws you in. The cool different designs of bosses,
Right.
like Iceman, Fireman, all those different guys. Just they have their own unique character, and the idea of having your own, being able to pick what stage you want to go in, what order you want to go in, how you want to tackle different enemies, gives a customization that I don't know is
What would
was
you
kind
give
of
the
unique.
sound? I was going to actually.
Oh,
add
the
that
sound.
one. Yes, I was just going to give you that.
Oh,
Yep.
fair enough. I was going to say I give the music, especially I would give the music probably a B plus.
Yeah.
And then the sound was cool too. Some of the unique sounds that you hear.
Oh, yeah.
Like when you pick up the point pellets or whatever they are,
Yeah.
which didn't really make their way back into the series because most people, I guess, didn't really care about high
Or
scores.
no, that kind of
It's not like the days of Atari where that was kind of the
big
focus.
thing. Yep.
So the sound was pretty good too. I would say my favorite part is definitely the music, but the sound effects are fun too. So I'd say probably B plus for the music.
For sound, I'm going to give it a B plus. I thought it was great. The music, the levels.
You find yourself humming it
They're
later,
unique. Yes,
It sticks
very.
with ya.
It does. Overall, it was a very good introduction to the series. I think the game is for more experienced gamers.
Yeah.
Definitely not if you got a kid, younger than maybe 7th grade. I don't know if they're going to like it so much.
Right.
It is a retro game now, but
Retro
it's
games
harder.
tend to be more difficult than
They
a lot
are.
of games we have nowadays.
They are. I'm very glad I picked this up for the Xbox anniversary, and I give the game overall a solid B.
Yeah.
It's a great platform, very ahead of its time. It was way different than most platforms I played, but just a really fun game, very rewarding once you finally beat it.
Right.
And, yeah, that's all I could say about Mega Man, and eventually we will do Mega Man 2, but
Yes.
why don't we talk about our next game we're going to be reviewing?
Yes, we're going to be
sometime
moving
in
a
the
little
future.
bit more into the future. If you look at it from a Mega Man point of view, we're going to be moving into the years of the Nintendo 64.
Yes,
It's a magical time.
Yes, that's right. We're going to be the next game we're going to review is Quest 64.
Yes.
It was a game that didn't get a sequel, but we've never played. Me or Travis have not played this game.
Yep, we both picked it up specifically for this podcast.
Yes.
That we're going to be playing through it, and there weren't a ton of RPGs for the N64, which is strange when you think about it. So Quest 64, I'm very excited. I think I rented it once way back ago when it was like the N64 days. So now, yeah, that'll be our next endeavor. So
Yeah.
hopefully you guys all tune in for that.
Yeah, it was always a game that it kind of looked interesting, but I just never played it. So
Yeah.
I'm going to be very excited to play that. But hope you guys enjoyed this inaugural episode of the Retro Review Crew.
That's us.
We don't know exactly when we'll be back. We'll try to be back as soon as we can.
Yes.
But yeah, that's it for Travis.
Yes.
For Matt, me.
That's you.
We're signing off.
Keep on retro gaming, my friends.
That's right. Retro Review Crew signing out.
Signing out.